Episode 7, Legacy of Steel. 5 years later, Evergreen Steel stood tall as a global leader in sustainable steel production. The once polluted skyline was now dotted with wind turbines, a symbol of the company's commitment to clean energy. Ethan, no longer the young, nervous leader, had matured into a seasoned CEO. The weight of responsibility sat comfortably on his shoulders. He wasn't just leading a company, he was a champion for a greener future, a role that came with its own set of challenges. One such challenge arose when a developing nation, eager to modernize, approached Evergreen with a steel production deal. The potential for growth was immense, but so were the environmental concerns. The country's lax regulations and limited infrastructure raised red flags. Ethan faced a moral dilemma. Turning down the deal would be a blow to Evergreen's expansion plans, but accepting it could compromise their sustainability principles. He sought Professor Sharma's counsel. Sometimes, progress requires taking calculated risks, Professor Sharma advised. But only if we can ensure responsible practices alongside economic benefits. Ethan knew she was right. He decided to propose a conditional agreement. Evergreen would partner with the nation, not just to build the steel plant, but also to develop a robust environmental protection program and train local workers in sustainable practices. Negotiations were tough. The government officials were more interested in short-term gains than long-term sustainability. But Ethan, with his unwavering commitment and Professor Sharma's expertise, managed to convince them of the benefits of a greener approach. The project, once finalized, became a model for sustainable development in the region. Evergreen not only built a state-of-the-art steel plant, but also established environmental monitoring systems and partnered with local universities to develop a skilled workforce focused on sustainability. Meanwhile, back home, Ethan faced a personal challenge. His father, the once iron-fisted steel titan, was diagnosed with a terminal illness. The news brought a wave of emotions: anger, resentment, and a flicker of long-dormant affection. Ethan spent his evenings by his father's bedside, sharing stories of Evergreen's success. He saw a glimmer of pride in his father's fading eyes, a grudging acknowledgement of the path Ethan had forged. One evening, his father, his voice raspy, spoke. "You showed me that steel can be more than just strength," he rasped. "It can be a force for good." Those words, a long-awaited acceptance, brought tears to Ethan's eyes. He realized that his journey wasn't just about transforming a company. It was about transforming a legacy. A few days later, his father passed away. Ethan, grieving but resolute, stood before the board of directors. He spoke of his father's passing, of the legacy he inherited, and the future he envisioned for Evergreen. He proposed an ambitious plan to become the world's first carbon-neutral steel producer. It was a bold vision, one that would require groundbreaking innovation and significant investment. The board, inspired by Ethan's leadership and Evergreen's track record, unanimously approved the plan. Professor Sharma, her eyes sparkling with excitement, pledged her team's full support. News of Evergreen's audacious goal spread like wildfire. The steel industry watched with a mix of skepticism and admiration. Investors flocked in, eager to be part of this groundbreaking initiative. Years passed, filled with tireless research, setbacks, and breakthroughs. Finally, the day arrived. Evergreen successfully produced its first batch of carbon-neutral steel. The news sent shockwaves through the industry. Ethan, now a seasoned leader with a touch of grey in his hair, stood before a global audience, announcing this revolutionary achievement. He spoke not just of Evergreen's success, but of the collective responsibility of the industry to embrace a sustainable future. As the applause thundered, Ethan knew his journey had come full circle. He had not only defied expectations, but redefined the legacy of steel. From a symbol of pollution to a force for positive change, steel, in Evergreen's hands, had become a beacon of hope for a greener future. Episode 8, Ripple Effects. 10 years after Evergreen's carbon-neutral steel breakthrough, the world looked different. The once smoke-choked skies were clearer, and sustainability had become a driving force in every industry. Evergreen, under Ethan's leadership, remained the undisputed leader in green steel production. However, new challenges emerged. A powerful mining conglomerate, Ironclad Industries, rose to prominence. Led by the ruthless CEO, Victoria Thorne, Ironclad employed questionable practices to undercut Evergreen's prices. They lobbied for relaxed environmental regulations, prioritizing short-term profits over long-term sustainability. Ethan saw Victoria's tactics as a threat to everything Evergreen stood for. He knew a direct confrontation wouldn't work. He needed a new strategy, a way to expose Ironclad's practices and champion the environmental benefits of green steel on a global scale. The answer came from an unexpected source: his son, Leo, a bright young man with a passion for environmental activism. Leo had grown up witnessing his father's fight for a greener future. He presented his father with a plan, a global social media campaign, #SteelForGood. The campaign aimed to educate the public about the environmental impact of steel production, highlighting the stark contrast between Evergreen's sustainable practices and Ironclad's environmental disregard. The campaign leveraged the power of influencers, journalists, and everyday citizens to spread the message. #SteelForGood caught fire. Shocking videos of Ironclad's polluting practices went viral. Consumers, increasingly environmentally conscious, started demanding green steel. Architects and construction companies switched to Evergreen, prioritizing sustainability over cheaper, dirtier alternatives. Victoria, cornered and desperate, resorted to underhanded tactics. She launched a smear campaign against Evergreen, accusing them of greenwashing and labor exploitation. Ethan, prepared for such an attack, provided journalists with full transparency, inviting them to visit Evergreen's facilities and witness their ethical practices firsthand. The pressure on Ironclad mounted. Governments, pressured by public opinion, tightened environmental regulations. Investors, wary of negative publicity, started pulling out of Ironclad. The once powerful conglomerate began to crumble. Finally, Victoria Thorne was forced to resign. Ironclad Industries, its reputation tarnished, faced a massive restructuring. Ethan saw this not as a victory, but as a turning point for the entire industry. He reached out to Ironclad's new CEO, a young woman named Sarah Green, who shared Ethan's vision for a sustainable future. Together, they formed the Green Steel Alliance, a coalition of steel producers committed to environmentally friendly practices. Years later, as Ethan watched his son, Leo, now a leading environmental advocate, address a global summit on sustainable development, a wave of pride washed over him. The journey that began with a rebellious son defying his family's legacy had transformed into a global movement. Steel, once a symbol of pollution, was now synonymous with innovation and environmental responsibility. Ethan's legacy wasn't just about transforming a company. It was about inspiring a generation to build a greener future, one steel beam at a time. The final scene showed Ethan, his hair streaked with grey, standing on a rooftop overlooking the city. The cityscape glittered in the warm sunlight, a stark contrast to the polluted skyline of his youth. A gentle smile played on his lips as a young girl, pointing at the sky, asked her father, "Dad, why is the sky so blue?" The father, with a glint of pride in his eyes, replied, "Because people, like your grandpa, decided it was time for a change." Episode 9, Full Circle. The year is 2045. Ethan, now a silver-haired elder statesman of the green steel industry, surveyed the bustling Evergreen headquarters from his corner office. The company, a titan of sustainability, had come a long way from its smoke-spewing past. A knock on the door brought him back to the present. It was Maya, her once fiery activism tempered by years of collaboration. Now Evergreen's chief sustainability officer, she carried a glint of worrying in her eyes. "Ethan," she began, "we have a problem. A rare earth mineral crucial for our green steel production has been discovered under protected land in the Amazon rainforest." Ethan's heart sank. Evergreen prided itself on ethical sourcing, and exploiting a rainforest was unthinkable. Yet, this mineral was vital for their most efficient green steel formula. What are the alternatives? He asked, his voice heavy. Maya shook her head. Existing substitutes are less efficient, driving up production costs and potentially jeopardizing our environmental edge. Ethan knew a public relations nightmare loomed. They couldn't risk accusations of hypocrisy or greenwashing. But exploiting the rainforest wasn't an option either. That night, sleep evaded Ethan. He tossed and turned, haunted by the weight of responsibility. Then, a memory surfaced, his rebellious youth, the anger that fueled his journey towards sustainable steel. The next morning, Ethan addressed his executive team. He laid out the dilemma, the ethical concerns, and the potential consequences. Then, he surprised everyone, including himself. "We're not going to touch that rainforest," he declared, his voice firm. "We'll find another way. We'll invest in research, explore alternative minerals, double down on recycling initiatives. It won't be easy, but it's the only way forward that aligns with our values." The announcement sent shockwaves through the industry. Some saw it as naivete, others as a calculated risk. But Ethan's unwavering commitment to sustainability resonated with many. Years of research followed. Evergreen partnered with universities and green technology startups, pouring resources into alternative materials and closed-loop production processes. It was a slow, arduous journey, but they persisted. Finally, a breakthrough. A young scientist at a partner university discovered a viable substitute for the rare earth mineral. It was less efficient, but with further refinement, it could bridge the gap. The news was met with cheers and jubilation. Evergreen, true to its word, had found a sustainable solution. They announced the discovery, along with a renewed commitment to responsible sourcing practices. News outlets hailed Evergreen's perseverance. The company's stock soared, not just because of the innovation, but because they had stayed true to their core values. They had proven that sustainability wasn't just a marketing gimmick, but a way of life. In the end, the rainforest remained untouched. The substitute mineral, though not perfect, paved the way for further innovation. Evergreen's commitment to ethical practices inspired other companies to follow suit. Years later, Ethan, retired and surrounded by his family, watched a documentary about the Amazon rainforest. Lush green landscapes filled the screen, a testament to the delicate balance between progress and conservation. A smile played on his lips. He had come a long way from the rebellious youth who once rejected his family's legacy. He had not only transformed a company, but redefined the future of an entire industry. And in doing so, he had ensured that the steel that built the world would also help sustain it. The circle, once broken by youthful rebellion, had come full circle, leaving behind a legacy of innovation and responsibility.